Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another session of Overlock of Digital Design under Verilog HDL. So, in the previous classes, we discussed regarding hierarchical modeling and we discussed a few of the concepts which came in HDL. So, that is design methodologies. Then we discussed 4-bit ripple adder, how it can be designed. So these all things we had discussed, and apart from that, we got to know what is meant by modules, what it basically consists of, and if I want to declare a module, how I can declare, and then we discussed an example related to the ripple carry counter, how I can design this ripple carry counter. So we had discussed what all things come under modules, module and module keywords, then module name, terminal list, and what is the functionality that has to be implemented. So these all things we had discussed in previous classes. And then apart from that, one important concept what we discussed was Verilog is both behavioral language and structural language. So that is, it basically permits us to write code somewhat similar to algorithmic form. So that's why we classify it as behavioral language, or we can also specify it as algorithmic language. And what is meant by structural is we'll be able to obtain the gate level of abstraction. So how the gates get connected, what all components are present, what is the interconnection between them. So if we are able to describe the digital design in this form, we can classify it as the structural language. Therefore, gate level abstraction is also sometimes termed as a structural level of abstraction. A behavioral language becomes very similar to C programming, writing code like in C program. So that is what we had discussed previously. So then we had discussed what is meant by instances. What is meant by instances? So instance is nothing but first you define the module. So module basically provides us a template. Using the template, I can create the objects. The objects which are created are called instances. Instances of the module. So objects which are created from the templates will be classified as the instances. So somewhat when you go for object-oriented programming, right, there you'll come under these terms, object, instances, so such kind of terms. So whenever we specify regarding an object will be having name, parameters, IO interfaces. So when we go for coding part, right, there will have discussion on these all things. So instantiation, what is meant by instantiation? The process of creating the objects from the template of the module. And the objects itself are called as instances. So these discussions we had. So let us continue. So previously we discussed up to instances. So what is basically instance? It is a process of creating the objects from the templates what you have created for the module. And the objects what are created are called the instances of that module. So let us see what this actually implies. So here we have one example what we have taken. Don't worry about the syntax and other stuff because later we will get to know how it is written, what has to be done, what is output, what is input, what is wire. So these all things will be coming in later. So here what we are doing is we are defining a module called as ripple carry counter. So the name of the module is ripple carry counter, and it has three terminal lists: queue, clock, and reset. And then we have terminated it. So this is the keyword. This is the module name. These are the terminals or the ports which are required. Then you have declared some parameters like output 3 is to 0, that is 4 bits, which is Q, which is Q. So that is Q will be acting as the output. Then input, if you just see clock and reset, that is these two parameters will be acting as the input. Now here you can just observe this is what is important for us. That is we can see that we have created 4 instances of the modules of the module T flip-flop. Now what does this imply is, this is already defined. This T flip-flop which is specified, right? This is also defined. So we'll see that also in the coming slide. So here what we are doing is, you can see that there are 4 different instances which are created. That is TFF0, TFF1, 2 and 3. There are 4 instances which are been created for the module T flip-flop. For the module T flip-flop. So T underscore FF is the module name what we have given. Using that template, using that module, we are creating instances of that module, that is the T flip-flop. So in this case, I am having 4 instances of T flip-flop, that is TF0 to TFF3, TFF0 to TFF3, and each is passed with certain parameters. Each is having some terminal list. So here what we are doing, we are creating 4 instances of T flip-flop. We are creating 4 instances of T flip-flop. So indirectly TFF0 is nothing but a object. TFF1 is also object, TFF2 and TFF3. These are all objects, and we call that these are the instances of the T flip-flop. And this is the end module. So this module which is present is the module related to ripple carry counter. Ripple carry counter. So in this we have created 4 instances of T flip-flop. Now let us see what is T flip-flop consisting of. So if we just observe here, we have again keyword module, then we have T underscore FF. So T underscore FF is utilized over here. So this is the module name for this entire structure. This is the module name for this entire structure. Then under this, what we have, Q, clock, and reset, which are the terminal list. And in that, again, Q is specified as output. Then input is clock and reset. Then we have some parameter which is wire, which is termed as D. So here you can observe one more thing. Here we have specified something as D underscore FF. So this is also another module which is being declared. This is also a module, and what we are doing is, for this module we are creating an instance of it. DFF0 is an instance of D flip-flop whose name is D underscore FF, and in this you can just see that these are the parameters what are present. So here again we can just observe. First, we declared a ripple carry counter. This is the entire module. In this module, I have 4 instances of T flip-flop, TFF0 to TFF3. So these are the 4 instances of the T flip-flop. These instances are declared using the template what? They are declared using the template of T underscore FF. That is this module. Using the template of this module. So apart from calling it as instances also, we can call it as TFF0 to TFF3 are the objects which are of the form T underscore FF. T underscore FF. So when we are utilizing this, right, this also has to be declared somewhere. That template has to be present. If it is not present, then it will throw error. So that is what is defined over here. So this is a T flip-flop module. So using this template, so it is acting as a template. So using this template, we have created the objects related to the T underscore FF for that module. So these are the instances what we have created. So another observation if we make here, so we have instance DFF0 which has been created for the module template D underscore FF. So this is the instance, and it is also called as the object. And here we are assuming that not is available, and we are declaring N1 instance for this not. We are creating N1 instance for this not. and there are two parameters what you're passing over here. So this is how it goes around. This is the end module. So this entirely defines the D flip-flop. T flip-flop. So here you can see that you have what? You have ripple carry counter, which is at the top level. So in this, you have declared 4 instances using T underscore FF. So you have declared 4 instances. And when you're declaring 4 instances, in that, if you just observe what you're doing is you are creating instances of D flip-flop. You're creating instances of D flip-flop and the inverter. So this is the last level, which is the leaf level cell. This is the last level, which is the leaf level cell. And this is the sub block. This is the top level block. So what you're doing is you are using, in this case, you are using top-down design approach. You're using top-down design approach in this case. So next thing, a few things to remember or a few things to discuss related to instances is you cannot have a nesting of modules. So you cannot declare a module within a module or define with module within a module. This is not permitted, or it is specified as illegal to do so in Verilog. So one module definition cannot contain another module definition. So here what it implies, so let us check. So we cannot contain one module definition within the another module definition. So here, whenever we have to declare a module, right, we use the keywords module and module. So within this, we write the logical implementation of the functionality what is required. So here we'll be having module name, then we'll be having the terminal list. Within this, I cannot have another thing like this, module and module. So this is not permitted. This I cannot do. If I have to define it, I have to go outside and then define it and then utilize the instances of that module what you have defined. Like the previous example, what we have specified. So this is not permitted. Nesting is not permitted in this case in Verilog. But what we can have is we can have multiple instances of the module what we have defined. That is this case. We can have multiple instances created, but I cannot have this entire structure, this entire definition falling within this. I cannot have it somewhere here and then create the instances. So that is not permitted. I can have multiple instances of the modules what I have defined. So using that templates, I can create the objects and have the instances of that module. So module definition basically specifies how the module will work. So it will tell that, okay, in the ripple carry counter, it is specifying that here this module will make use of 4 instances of T flip-flop. So using this, it is implementing. So that is what it is telling, how the module is working. And T flip-flop in turn will make use of these instances and then work around. So that is the information what it is providing. So how the module will work? What are its internals? So in the previous case, we saw that the internals of the ripple carry counter will contain, say, the T flip-flop, but the T flip-flop in turn will contain D flip-flop and the inverter. So these are the things, and we should have even module definition for the D flip-flop. We should have the module definition for the D flip-flop, how we have for the T flip-flop over there, right? Similarly, we should have it for D flip-flop. What are its internals and what are the interfaces which are present? So if you just observe there, we had written something as input, wire, output. Similarly, here also we had output, input. So this is actually a vector. So we have something called a scalar and vector. So these all where it is connected, how it is connected, what are the instances which are required. So what are the interfaces, whether you want to connect it to a IO pin or any other this thing. So how it can be done. So those all things can be specified in this module instance. So module definition basically specifies how the module will work, what are its internals, and what is the interfaces it is having. So instance, a module must be instantiated for use in the design. So whenever you are designing a digital circuit, right, you should first define the module, and then if I want to use that module, I should have the instances. That is what this specifies. That is what this statement specifies. That is what we have observed in a previous case. So here you can see that we have T flip-flop module which has been defined. But if I want to design the ripple carry counter using this T flip-flop, then I'll be making use of the instances. Then I'll be making use of the instances of the T underscore FF module. So that is what this statement implies. So this is what I meant for illegal nesting. So here you can just see we have module keyword module and keyword end module. Within this, actually, the functional details will be coming in. But what is happening is I cannot have again written as module and end module. I cannot do this. So that is what we intended. I cannot define a module for T flip-flop here itself. I cannot have module and end module and define the entire structure of the template what we have discussed. So that is not permitted. So this is not permitted in this case. So that is what we are seeing here. So here if you just see module, ripple carry counter. So this is end module. So this is the entire thing for the ripple carry counter. Within this, what we are doing, we are defining it as module and end module. So this kind of template declaration or definition of the module is not permitted. So I cannot do this. I can just have the instances about that is what we had written T underscore FF, TFF not and the parameters. So this we can create the instances, but I cannot define it in this form. So that is not permitted over here. So this is illegal module nesting which is not permitted in Verilog. So next comes what are the components of a simulation. So whenever we have to go ahead with the simulation, so simulation is nothing but you are mimicking. You are mimicking few of the things. Say for example, you are building a adder in say logic design lab or design digital electronics lab, right? You rig up the circuit and you give the input and you test it. So similarly, if you want to do it using a system, but you're not going to actually look into the hardware connections. You're doing it in the logical form using the programming language, that is the HDL. So I have to, whatever code I have written, I have to test that whether it is working fine or not. So I do it by mimicking that entire circuit or the logical implementation what I have done. So that is what we have to check out. So what will be the components required for that purpose? So for that purpose, first what we should do is you have to design the circuit. That is, you have to design the digital circuit. So one thing which comes is the design. And another one, once I have built this design, so it is like rigging up the entire circuit, just for analogy. So it is like you have defined everything. So what is this design doing? It is doing something as A plus B, which is an adder. So it is doing A plus B. Now I have to give several inputs to this and I have to see whether I am getting the expected result or not. So how do I do it? How do I provide the input? I give some stimulus to this. I stimulate it. I give some stimulus to this. So what is happening? If you just see, when I look into the simulation aspect, right, I'll be having two things. So one is the design aspect and one is the stimulus aspect. So I have built the design. Now I have to test this design. So how that testing goes around. So I have to give some test input to this entire design. So that is, I must stimulate it and see what is the overall result. So here two things come in, that is stimulus and the design. So these are again defined as the blocks. These are defined as the blocks, and then later we see how the result goes around. So here, what happens is once you have designed the block, right, we have to test that block for the intended functionality. If I have designed an adder, I should check whether it is working properly as an adder or not, whether it is giving me the intended results or not. So that is testing is basically done with the help of applying stimulus to the design block. Testing will be done by applying stimulus to the design block. Once we give the stimulus to the design block, we'll be obtaining some results, and we need to check those results to see whether the functionality is properly implemented or not. If some changes or if some errors pop in, maybe logical errors or any other errors, so we have to check out what changes I have to do. That is what we had seen in the design flow approach, what we had discussed. So we have to again define some block for this purpose, that is to stimulate. So that block is called as stimulus block. So now we can see that we have two things. So one is design block and the other is stimulus block. So stimulus block, what it is doing, it is giving the test inputs to the design block. It is giving the test input to the design block, and this design block will be providing you the results. So that is what is happening in this case. Okay. What are the other name for stimulus block? Sometimes we refer it to as a test bench, because using the stimulus block, we are giving all the possible test conditions, or we are testing the design block. We are trying to test all the conditions with respect to the design block functionality. So we also term it as test bench. Now, advantage of Verilog is we can write the stimulus block or the test bench in Verilog. So this makes a little bit easier to test around with the functionality what is present. So no need to wait till the end. We have to dump the code on the IC, or then try to see build the IC and then try to see how it is working. Instead of doing that, we can do it with the help of the test bench. Now, one good practice generally what is followed by the developers is they build the block of the design separately and they build the block of the stimulus separately, so that if I have to make any changes in the stimulus block, I have to add some conditions, remove some conditions, or try to put in all the conditions which are possible. Then apart from that, if any additional way of testing the design has to be done, so everything can be done over here. So this can be done by a separate team and this can be done by a separate team. They can do this. Few of the tests designers itself can go ahead. Then a few of the critical conditions, the stimulus block what is designed, we can give as input to the design block. You can have both in one, that is also possible. Design block along with the stimulus. Design block along with the stimulus. This is also possible. And another one is design block separate and stimulus block separate. Good practice is to go for both blocks to be separate. So it is like divide and rule. Try to see how the design block is working with respect to stimulus. So if any condition has to be checked, just change the design block. It will test the change the stimulus block details. It will check the design block implementation. That is what it goes around. So there are two styles in which we can apply the stimulus. That is first method is the stimulus block instantiates the design block. That is, stimulus block instantiates means in previous case what we had written something as t underscore ff t ff not. So what we are doing, we are creating instances of this block t ff t underscore ff. We are creating instances of this block. So this is the design block which is present, and this is the instance of this design block. So here we have a design block which is defined, and for stimulus block, in the stimulus block, what I can do is I can create instances of that module or the design block, and I can pass some parameters and I can test the overall condition. So in this one, what happens is the stimulus block directly drives the signal which is given to the design block. Signal which is given to the design block. So here what we are doing, we are creating instances. That is nothing but we are creating objects related to the design block and providing input using that object. I'm providing input to the design block using that object. So that is what is shown over here. So here we have the entire stimulus block. We have the entire stimulus block. So in this, what is done is design blocks instance is created. So ripple carry counter, you already had defined the module. So instance of that is created. So I have something specified as module. So let me specify it as stimulus block SB. We write it as stimulus. We write it as stimulus. So then we have the parameters which are required, and this is, then we have end module. So in this one, what we do is we write ripple, say ripple carry counter. So let me assume that this is the name of the design block RCC. That is how it is defined. And what I do is I create an instance of this RCC not, and I pass some parameters based on how it is defined. So here stimulus itself will be creating instances of this ripple carry counter. So in this case, ripple carry counter stimulus is a ripple carry counter instance is created. That is, we create an object related to this, and then we test the overall condition. So what is stimulus doing in this case? Stimulus is providing clock as an input and reset as an output, and it is getting Q as the output, and it is trying to see whether the Q is as per its expectation. If it is not, then it can put up an error flag. It can put up an error flag. So here stimulus block becomes the top level block. Stimulus block becomes the top level block. Stimulus block itself is creating instances of this. So it is like creating sub blocks of this one. The stimulus block in the first style is the highest level. That is the top level block. So stimulus block is basically the top level block in this case. Now here, as I discussed, it tries to change the clock and reset. That is these two parameters, and tries to see how this module will be behaving. And it tries to see what is the output. It gets the result and it checks whether it is equal to the expected result or not. So there is another style, that is second. So what we do in this case is both are instantiated separately. Both are instantiated separately. There is a separate instance for stimulus block. There is a separate instance for the design block. So what does this imply? So this is how it goes around. So you have the top level block in which you have one instance for stimulus block and one instance for the design block. That is, for example, I'll be having something as SB naught. So let me specify that this is a stimulus which is given as SB. So I'll be having SB, and SB naught will be the name of this instance. SB naught will be the name of the instance. And similarly for ripple, say ripple carry counter is the name of the block what we have created. Then we have RCC naught. So what we are doing is we are creating instances of RCC and instances of the stimulus block. That is ripple carry counter and the stimulus block. So here instances of the stimulus block and instances of the ripple carry counter, that is a design block, are provided separately. And what is done is from the instance of the stimulus block, you give d underscore clock and d underscore reset as input to the design block of the ripple carry counter. And what ripple carry counter will do? Ripple carry counter will estimate its result and it will return Q as its output, and it gives it to the stimulus block. What does stimulus block do? Stimulus block takes its result, which is provided by the ripple carry counter, and tries to test whether it is expected or not. Previously, directly it was changing clock and reset, but now what you're doing is you're separately providing these signals and you're giving it as input to these blocks, that is separate instances. So there only one instance was created, but here one instance in the sense instance for the design block was created in the first side. But in this case, separate instances for both. So both together, both together are acting as the top level blocks. They're acting as the top level blocks. So stimulus blocks, as I mentioned, this basically drives d underscore clock and d underscore reset, which is given as input to clock and reset of the design block in this case. And this one returns back Q and returns back Q to the stimulus block. And what it does is it tries to check what is that Q value using C underscore Q signal and tries to see a display or tries to test whether it is appropriate or not. So here the function of the top level is to instantiate the design and the stimulus blocks. So in this case, what we are doing is previously you saw that stimulus block itself was acting as a top level block. But now what is happening in top level block itself, what you are having is you are having the instances of these. So in top level block, you have instances created. So that is, it is like we are dividing it as stimulus block and ripple carry counter. So what is, so it is like in this case. So how we are doing this? This total thing turns out to be a top level block. So that is what is happening in this case. So the function of top level block is to instantiate. It just creates instances of the stimulus block and the design block. So we have the design block. Design block, as we had discussed previously for the ripple carry counter. So in this, what is happening? You have the keyword module and end module. So within this, the entire functionality falls. So what is the module name? Module name is ripple carry counter. And there are three terminals or ports which are provided: Q, clock, and reset. Now Q is acting as output, reset and clock are acting as input. Now here what we have, so as I discussed previously, T underscore FF is a template or it is a module which has been defined. Using this template, what I'm doing is I'm creating instances of T flip-flop. So here TFF naught 1, 2, and 3 all are instances of the module T underscore FF. So these are instances, or we also call it as objects. These are the instances or objects. So for through this objects, you can see that these are the parameters what it deals with. Okay. So this is the design block. This is the design block. Then under this thing design block, what other thing comes is, so this is for ripple carry counter. Now I should have definition of T flip flop. I should have definition of T flip flop. So I cannot nest it. So that is illegal. So I have to come out only and define the modules. So here again T underscore FF is the name of the module. Module and end module are the keywords. So within this the T flip flop implementation will fall. So here again three parameters: output is Q, input is clock and reset, wire is D. So these all things again we'll be discussing later. So wherein we'll be coming through the construction conventions of Verilog. That is in the second module we start off with all these things. So here what is happening? T flip flop again creates instances of D underscore FF. That is D underscore FF is the name of the module which is related for D flip flop. So here DFF naught is the instance of D underscore FF, or DFF naught is the object which is related to D underscore FF. Again, in this case, again, four parameters are passed. And here what we are doing, we are taking naught. So naught is basically a primitive which is present in Verilog. So we are using this primitive to create an instance related to that, N1 is an instance of NOT. That is instance of the NOT gate. So now since we have instance of D flip-flop, this also has to be defined. So that also is present. So here we can just observe. So we have module D underscore flip-flop, which is the name of this entire module. Then we have end module, which basically terminates this entire module. Then we have the four parameters as we saw over there. Again, output is Q, input is these three things, and we have something called as register, which is Q. So here, so don't worry about the entire syntax. Just try to see how this module is being defined. So in this again, in this underscore D underscore flip flop, what we have all these things defined. So we have to define all these things. So what is this? So this we'll discuss again later. So what this actually implies. This is specifying something size. This is specifying the format. This is the actual number. So that all we'll discuss later. So here we are writing something as always some positive edge or negative edge clock. If reset is clicked, what has to be done? Else, what you have to do. So that is what you're doing. So here, if you just know, if you just identify D flip flop is nothing but a delay. So whatever input is present at D has to be given at the output. So that is the simple thing which is present over here. So here you can just see first what we did. We defined a ripple carry counter. We defined ripple carry counter module. So in this module, we had instances of four flip flops, T flip flops. So four T flip flops. That is TFF not TFF 1, 2, and 3. So we had defined in that form. So we had four instances of the T flip flop defined under RCC, that is the ripple carry counter module itself. So in turn, if you just observe that T flip flop had instances for D flip flop and the inverter So under this, you are not dividing it further. So here, if you just see, I am not dividing, and I am assuming that this is the last level, and here I cannot divide it further. So these are the leaf level cells what we have obtained. So if you just observe what is happening, you are building the entire ripple carry counter by making use of T flip flop and T flip flop in turn using the D flip flop and the NOT. So it is like top down design approach. It is like top down design approach what you are utilizing over here. So you have these other things which are present. Okay. So ripple carry counter module, four instances of T flip flop. Then T flip flop module is defined over here, which again defines instance related to D flip flop. And this is how D flip flop is being defined. Okay. So this is how it goes around. So how do we declare the stimulus over here? How do we declare the stimulus over here? So here you can observe that we should provide clock and reset signals. This is basically done to test how that ripple carry counter functions. So here we have to test it for 4-bit ripple carry counter because we have four T flip-flops. So if we have four flip-flops, it turns out to be a 4-bit ripple carry counter. If we have just two, it will be 2-bit ripple carry counter. So since there are 4 bits, right, it can count from 000 to all ones. That is from decimal 0 to decimal 15. It can count up to that point. So we should again what we are testing out is we are testing out the function of the 4-bit triple carry counter, and we are testing the asynchronous reset. That is clock is not common for this purpose. That is at any random time if I reset it, what happens? So something of this kind. So we are trying to test in this case. So this information later we'll be utilizing. That is cycle time for clock is 10 units. Then reset signal stays up from 0 to 15 and then goes up again from 195 to 205. This all will again utilize it later. Okay, and since it is 4-bit, right, Q has to count from 0 to 15. So that will just check out later what is happening over here. So here you can just see here we have the clock which is defined, and here the Q starts. So it starts with 0, 1, 2, so on. It continues up to 15, and after that, once 15 is reached, again it starts to recount from 0, 1, 2. Now here you can see that when is the count started. Count is started whenever reset goes low. If reset is top, right, Q is always set to 0. When reset is high, Q is always set to 0. That is what it intends. So here you can make that reset is low from this point to this point. Therefore, Q is not made 0. It will be continuously counting. So that's why you have count up to 15 over here. But after 15, what is happening? Again, the counter keeps on counting. So after 15, it comes back to 0 and it starts again. But here, what is happening? Again, in between, you are making reset high. You are making reset high. So when you make reset high, what happens is Q again it turns out to be 0. When again Q goes back to 0, right? Sorry, reset goes back to 0, right? So again counter starts to count. So that is how it is appearing over here. So this information, right, later we'll be checking. So in simulation results, you'll get this. Simulation results, we can just check out what is actually happening over here. So here stimulus block, it is used to do what? It basically provides the clock signal and the reset. It provides the clock signal and the reset, which control the 4-bit ripple carry counter. So when in this case, what we have to check out, what happens when reset is changed, that is asynchronous reset mechanism, and whether if reset is in proper form, that is reset is 0, whether counting is happening, that is the functioning of 4-bit ripple carry counter. That is what we are testing over here.